Here we go. All right, call to order the Scio Township AdHoc appointments. Okay, we'll go with that. AdHoc Manager Committee.
Interim manager.
All right, roll call. Kathy Knoll,
Here.
Kathleen Brandt,
Here.
Jillian Carey,
Here.
Jessica Flintoff,
Here.
Ryan Apel, here. All are here. Adoption of the agenda. Anyone have anything you'd like to revise or change on the agenda?
I just want to clarify, the discussion is just kind of on how things are going. Okay, super.
Do you think we might consider adding something about next steps for eventual search?
That'd be fine with me.
We're not,
Search for interim or search for permanent?
Permanent. We can, yeah. I mean, I know it's not formally part of our charge, but
exactly.
Do that.
don't want to get too far afield, but we can.
Yeah. Would that be F3?
Yep. Anything else?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
A second.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Awesome. All right, next up is public comment. This is time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview, of this committee, at board trustees. Judy, would like to say anything?
I have nothing, I'm just encouraged that this committee is moving ahead well.
Thank you.
Mr. Bean? Anyone online?
We do, we have Rob Pattinson. Go ahead, Rob.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Jillian, did I hear that you added F3 as an interim search or a permanent search for a manager?
No, I did not. Kathleen, that was Kathleen's suggestion, and
Oh.
it was for a permanent manager search.
Ah, right, okay. Because the whole idea of the interim manager was solved last
Got
time
it.
with Christie. So, yeah, now I understand. And finally, Christie, did you have any training with Joyce Parker? The whole idea of the ad hoc committee making the fast recommendation was so that you would have some time to do some training with Joyce. Did you indeed get a chance to do training with her?
No, not at all. She never approached me about training.
That is extremely unfortunate. That was the whole point. Fortunately, Christie, you are extremely capable and have know probably 90% of what Joyce was doing. And perhaps between Jess and other officials, we can find out what other stuff she was working on so that you can pick up the pieces. But that is extremely disappointing that you didn't get a chance to do any training at all. That was the whole point.
Yes, thank you, Rob. I did offer to the board to research any other items they wanted more information on, so. Once they come up with something that they want to hear about, I can look into it. Other than that,
And Christie's already sent an update to the board at the end of last week,
Mhm.
items, and we'll be at our board meeting tomorrow.
yes.
Awesome. Any other public comment? Oh, sorry.
No other hands raised at this time.
Awesome. For approval of the minutes, there was a couple of areas where we didn't have.
I didn't have the data.
Say they remember.
Oh, yeah, I had a comment on
I thought I had filled those.
I thought you
in.
did too.
Yeah, I apologize if.
That's
I didn't
okay.
Get in there.
Well, I can update that because I can type it then.
Yeah. So Christie, I'll say this, the version that I included as a report to the Board of Trustees meeting of September tenth. Those minutes, that version, has those blanks filled
You
in.
want me to fix that and then send it back?
We can, or if it's okay with the group, we could just make a motion to replace these draft minutes with those.
Okay.
I have a revision also to the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so under the category, define the team by functional area with board liaison. The second to the last one, with my name by it,
Uh-huh.
City of Ann Arbor, so it should be City of Ann Arbor Utilities, not the whole city.
Right.
I agree.
And then when we have our discussion later, we'll talk a little more about this, but under planning zoning, you've got Kathy Knoll with attorney reviews.
Yeah.
Just the consensus was, I thought, that I would oversee the projects planning and zoning.
Yeah, so this would have been simply meant. right,
Okay.
As reviews of documents.
Okay,
I can
Okay.
adjust that.
nah, it's okay, it's okay. We could talk about it more later, because there's an issue that's come up, but that's okay. And thank you for doing these.
Awesome. Any other adjustments in the minutes?
Just to be clear on process on these edits, is this something that Christie's gonna finalize or you'd like Kathleen to finalize?
However you wanna,
Well.
Probably be easiest for Christie too, frankly.
Okay, that's fine. I'm cool
With that, okay.
how about if I do it and then I can just run them, I'll just email them, you can,
Just run with it.
okay,
Trust,
okay.
trust the process.
Awesome. There's no other changes to the minutes, motion.
I move to adopt the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Next item on our agenda then is new business, status report from you, Christie.
Okay, well, it was a good week. Like I said, it was a light week. I sat on the attorney meeting and that was very good. So I could see what was coming up on the agenda and why it was going on the agenda and any issues or problems. But that was extremely helpful to be able to sit in and listen to all of that come closer together. So
Awesome.
other than that, I think that was the only major meeting I sat in on, I think, but
You also ran the management meeting.
oh, yeah, that too. Ran the management meeting, so that went well, and
And who's present at the management meeting?
all the department heads, trust, supervisor, clerk, and treasurer.
And do you usually sit in?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
but you
usually-
just ran it that time.
right.
Yeah.
I just, the agenda pretty much follows what's coming up on the next board meeting. Going over what the items are, letting each person that was responsible for putting it on the agenda speak to it. And then if anybody has any questions, they'll answer. And then they'll also ask, is there any other agenda items that you think might be coming up or that you need to put on this agenda? You know, then we'll discuss it if there's any. And then the deadline is Wednesday at noon to get that, for them to get it into peak.
One more thing, at our last meeting, Aurora mentioned that, the RFP proposals were due on September the 16th. And we asked, I think we asked you be included in that, but did anything happen? Did anybody reply?
Yes, we do have.
Were you involved in that?
No, it was just
No.
Joyce and myself, and then the
But
committee.
Joyce was gone on the 16th.
Right, the committee that we have right now is myself and Andy Hood, the fire chief, and Rebecca Motti, since they are the ones that are more knowledgeable in terms of the wages, et cetera.
But shouldn't
And
Christie be included in that?
I think given her new assignment,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is, just to be clear, this is for the wage and salary study? Is that what you were asking about? Yeah.
Classification,
Yes,
wage and
classification.
classification study, yes.
Wage and,
Yeah, and Andy and Rebecca had been involved with Aurora and Joyce before on doing some proposed revisions to the personnel handbook, which is why I think they kind of created that. But I think it would make sense for Christie to be involved too. Okay. What are the next steps on that, Aurora?
So we have just had a introduction meeting with Romberg. I've not met Jeff Romberg previously. So it was basically just to kind of introduce myself and just go over a little bit more with the process. And he is going to, they are finalizing a PowerPoint to review it with the board for approval
Okay,
of
good.
the actual study. So
The
they're-
proposal, the proposed study, yeah, okay.
that's for the October meeting.
And then, I know this information is been made public. We have 2 upcoming vacancies. Do you want to give a quick update on that?
We do, yes. Code enforcement officer be vacant effective October 5th. And the building maintenance custodian position is vacant right now.
So I know that you've instituted a practice of exit interviews, which I really appreciate, because I think it's always good to kind of offer up a chance for people to share. Do you have everything you need to post again for the buildings and grounds and for code enforcement?
So for the building and grounds, I'm reviewing the information with Brandon. It's a little bit different than the previous job posting. So I want him to take a look at it. In the interim, he has already brought in a contractor to kind of do the cleaning, et cetera, maintenance of the building, so.
And I will say the building and grounds job description, like a lot of the development, which I know Romberg's gonna help us with, it was in pretty rough shape, that job description. I mean,
Yeah.
it needs some attention. And I think as well, the code enforcement officer position, if you remember at the board, we created it. We had like a paragraph description. And I don't know that that was ever put into a fully fleshed out job description. So I would suggest that, you know, though we want to fill those positions, I assume there's consensus that we make sure that we, Aurora has the time to kind of flesh those out to what they should be. And if there's any substantive changes, that they come to the board for approval. And they could even go through on, consent, I'm sure, but I don't want the board to fall out of the practice of approving job descriptions.
Correct, especially when there are, for the building maintenance, the grounds one, there are some considerable differences in that. Initially, when it went through, it incorporated a bit of water meter checking, et cetera, and it has none of that
Yeah.
involved in that role, so.
That could have been the historical fact that Howard had transitioned from utilities into that role, so.
I think he did a little bit of both at the beginning.
Did he?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That might have been why, yeah, just kind of a carryover.
And then for code enforcement, I did have Sean review our current job description to see if there was anything he would suggest adding, et cetera, so we're on the way to reviewing those to try to finalize it so that the board can take a look at it,
yeah,
review it.
before he leaves, that's
And
good.
we do have the company coming in once a week to clean the building, and I think they're doing fabulous. They really are. And then I think Dave is helping with keeping the grounds mowed. And then coming to the board is the landscaping, so if that is approved and moves forward, I told Aurora today, I think we're okay for not to rush, take your time, getting the job description ready. And I'm not gonna go against anything she does. She did say she was gonna, that she thought of putting out the applications and taking applications, but if, I said, what if they need a job description? And then she said she could give him the older one, which would be fine too.
Mhm.
But I also said with the cleaning and the mowing going on already, I think we're okay to get it.
And would you please make sure
Correct.
Dave is coding his time properly
Okay.
for that, the 101-265?
And the cleaning company, is it working? We talked to, because they were here in the middle of the day disrupting.
They are coming at 7 o'clock now in the morning
Great.
to get the noisier
Yeah. It helps.
cleaning done, and
We're
it takes
no-
hours,
we're
it's a
noisy
little
enough.
bit of time to wake up to start coming into the building, so, you know, usually the flow gets a little heavier as the day progresses, so. If they're out of here by 10, 11, that should be fine, cause they were coming later in the day and it was kind of a lot.
Yeah, in the middle, and then there's committees and there's vacuuming and.
Right,
it was-
yeah,
Okay, that's good.
But they're still supervised, right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, cause Brandon told me he is here at 7, so he has that hour, and then there's other employees that, I don't know, do they come earlier?
yeah,
for
but you
each-
said supervised, you
Just
just
by somebody from the township?
is in the building with
Yeah.
them, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And I also just want to acknowledge, when Christy says it was a quiet week, it was also a quieter week because Christy and Fran had been incredibly busy with tax collection. So that was the big end, but a huge push at the front desk there, so.
Right, yeah, so in retrospect, that was a nice week compared to the weeks beforehand, it was a
You had a
lot.
lot of people on Monday.
No, actually, we didn't, and that surprised me because it was technically, you know, it was a very light day for that 16th.
I know when I was here that Friday afternoon, there was like a line of people nonstop.
Yeah, it was, there was an issue, someone's dog ate their card and I was trying to get that through and.
It really does happen.
Yeah, it really happens,
Oh,
you know, then you got people with bags of
Yeah.
cash and. So,
bags of-
well, it's a,
Yep.
it's a joke, but it's a lot of cash to be
Yeah.
having.
Yeah. Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, so.
Want to go to the next agenda item? Any other questions for Christie? So far, okay. All right, well, the next agenda item then, discussion, because I know there's a couple items that came up. If review on staff assignment lists, Trustee Nolan, you want to start?
I can start. So I've had a couple issues brought to my attention. The first one's the easy one. It was brought to my attention that some might want to attend planning pre-application meetings, administrative meetings. And I expressed concern about that, but I said I would talk to Mariah and Laura about the issue. They have concerns about it. They have different concerns. So this would be a public person attending pre-application meetings. Laura stated that sometimes they discuss confidential projects and that sometimes the meetings are conceptual, that there isn't a formed plan that they're discussing a concept. Sometimes property transactions or considerations might need to be kept confidential. And both Laura and Mariah said that in other communities, these types of meetings are kept as administrative meetings just for the people at the township who would be involved. The planning commission has one member assigned to attend these meetings that's rotated every month. But with serving on the planning commission, there will be the opportunity to attend many of these meetings. So Mariah went on to clarify that once a plan is submitted, it then becomes a public document.
Mhm.
From that point forward, it's a little bit different, but the earlier conversations sometimes need to be kept private. Laura has said she's a resource for all of us. If we have questions on anything related to planning at any time, we can call her. And then, it was reiterated at the end that concept is just a concept until it becomes a submitted plan. And I think we all get that.
Mhm.
I have some questions
Yeah.
or comments. So first of all, I'm assuming that the person who wants to attend these meetings is doing so for educational purposes on how this unfolds or how this works.
Presumably, they would be, they have.
Okay, so yes, and I am in total agreement that anybody, I'm big on education. We may think that we know something, but we may not, because this is government. It's different than other types of business. And then you just said something that it's in the early stages before the actual plans are submitted. That is not public, but as soon as the plans are submitted, they are.
Correct.
Could that person sit in a meeting from the point that it becomes public forward?
I would propose we have this discussion with the entire board, when the new board takes over. I would propose not making any changes until the new board takes over.
Okay, but this is, I'm
We
assuming,
haven't been doing that in the past. And I think that we would have to have more dialogue with Mariah and Laura. I think it's a possibility, but I want to be sure that everyone has a clear idea of the issues and the implications. One thing I didn't mention is that it was mentioned to me that this could stifle communication. And I advocated for more transparency in planning for years and years. But on this one, I would err toward doing what we've been doing. Until we've had a full board discussion, and let's get Mariah in here and let's get Laura in here and have a frank discussion with everybody. We can wait until we get the new board, I think. That's my
well,
opinion.
I think kind of the point is to anybody that has been elected August 6th and that wants to educate themselves or be educated. I mean, they are elect.
They
And if it's a
are
public-
not trustees elect yet until November. Until
November
the
5th.
November election, and then they're a trustee elect.
November 5th.
Correct. So right now they're not.
Okay, then they have 15 days to sit in on a planning.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay,
Let's.
well, all right, so we need to, persons that are asking for information. I know that up in that cupboard somewhere, there's a lot of information for planning commissioners or
Yes.
people that are interested in the planning process. The other thing is, I think I just lost it. Oh, I know what it is. So when a board member is the representative, on the planning commission,
Mhm.
are they rotated like the
Yes.
other? They are. Okay. That's good.
I will just share, I have not been to one of these meetings yet.
You should be rotated. It's been a year, right?
I'm
How
aware
long?
of that, I have not been to one yet, because
So-
I've not been invited to one yet, just to be transparent.
I asked Laura about that, and she said that some months they don't have any pre-application meetings.
Correct.
And that's
On that
what
month,
throws
that's
the
why.
schedule. Okay.
Kathy?
Yeah.
Thanks for looking into this. I agree, we need more transparency in our planning and zoning process, and I'm wondering if between maybe like Christy and Kathy, if you can start with what we have written down. Don't we have a process written down?
There is a process manual, a planning process.
Okay,
there is.
a planning process manual, and I think that planning process manual should be specific to these pre-app meetings, as they are called, and define them very specifically, because I think that there's a lot of correspondence and discussion that happens before an application. So I think that's a slippery slope. I get CC'd on so many things as clerk. And so I think that like this pre-app concept and I agree with you, Kathy, we need to fully understand the implications of everything. I would challenge it and say it's a bit of a stretch to say, I can't imagine what would be confidential. I mean, and there may be scenarios,
I can't.
okay. And I think that we just need to be really clear about the purpose of them
Mhm.
and then define who should be there. I think, you know, we would be hard pressed to say that anything that's said in there is not public.
Yeah, it's not like a land contract or.
Right, I mean, if there's some acquisition or something, I'm just, I can understand.
That's typically the thing I think that would come up the most is when you're doing like option or real estate
Right.
purchase agreements. If like concepts there and you haven't executed that document because you don't know if the township is going to be open to at least reviewing the ideas, so you don't want to go through the due diligence.
I
process.
understand why the developer may have an interest in the information being confidential. I just think and I think there's, you know, a lot of space between
Sure.
public published broadcast and confidential.
Sure.
But I just think we need to define what the township's interest is
Mhm.
in having these conversations. Why do we have them at all? What are they? Yeah,
I've expressed this at planning commission meetings and to the board of trustees that during planning commission meetings, it was announced that the process for public benefits would be addressed during pre-app. And I brought up the issue that the board of trustees has never defined public
That's true.
benefit.
that was one of the first.
And they
We talked about
stated
Joyce
that
got
this
here.
was an agreed process, and I replied, if it has not come before the board, it is not an agreed process.
Sure.
And the board has not defined what public benefits are.
Mhm.
So to jump on that, because we did talk about that, I think it was shortly after Joyce got here. Remember at the board, Jillian and Kathy, and we said, we'd like to have documented policy.
Yep.
And then Kathy, I think there was some initial work done on that as part of the development team.
Let me check with Laura.
And I think
I
it was
don't
something,
remember.
no, and I think it was something that Joyce had started on as kind of a draft. But I really do think we need to get that, shed some light on that and start working on
Because
that as a
that's
board.
been the issue with a fire millage slash SAD. That's what the public says. Why don't we get benefit from new developments? Why are they not paying their fair share?
Right, or some things that some people consider benefits that I wouldn't, like free purple air monitors when you live across the street from an asphalt facility. I would not consider that a public benefit. I have a feeling that will be presented tomorrow night as such.
Mhm.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Okay,
Just
so
bottom lining it.
then and that's where a list of to-dos or tasks.
Yes. It's
But-
on my list.
But I do think, Christy, maybe you, if you'd be so kind to kind of share that A through Z out with the whole board and the nominees. Just so we kind of see where that's supposed to fit in. And maybe it's defined in our ordinance, Kathy, I'm not sure. These pre-app meetings,
There's something about it in there.
there is something about it in our ordinance.
Fran just printed me a new ordinance.
Oh, good.
It's sitting out there.
So that was the easy one, Kathy.
Yeah, you had two issues. It was the hard one.
Come on.
I thought that was the one.
Okay. So, and I've briefly shared this with Jessica, so she kind of knows what it is. Today, I'm gonna search for the email here. I was taken by surprise when I got, I was CC'd on an email that Laura Krebs sent to Will. And it was asking him about placement of an issue on the board agenda. So I wanted to have clarification here today because I thought it was my role to be providing oversight with planning and zoning issues. And that will, I mean, once the decision is made, we could tell him, you know, this is going on the agenda. But Will doesn't have a say in deciding if something goes on the agenda. As that was my understanding. Now, I will say another issue came up after this initial email was sent. And Laura is now saying it has to go back to the planning commission anyway, which is good, it's fine. So we don't have to, but we need to decide, you know, how the breakdown with planning issues, like here now.
Yeah.
And because it's just coming up every day right now.
What I thought, Kathy, and I think would work well, I mean, one, Will has much right as any of the seven of us to put an item on the agenda. So number one, any of the seven electeds to put an item on the agenda. What you are tasked with is to determine if a planning or zoning item is ready for the agenda.
Right.
And that's where we really need your technical review,
Right.
and I do see that as completely your job in consultation with Laura and Mariah. And not any of the other six board members. And I think that is something that, you know, I think you talk about in your development team meetings. Sometimes kind of like the readiness.
All the time.
But, you know, like I saw that with this, Crossroads, I knew we were gonna have a public hearing because it had been noticed. And that's something else I wanna work with you and Fran on. Is the public hearing notices that go out. Just kind of when those will be. But then it came up it was on for action, the ordinance amendment. And so I didn't know, I assume you hadn't, but maybe I'm wrong,
I have not reviewed any of that.
if it was ready for the agenda for tomorrow.
I
I just wanted to confirm
I've had no discussion with Laura on that issue.
about the readiness of it.
About the
Okay.
readiness of Crossroads. Now, I assumed everything that was moving and had been determined to be ready for the agenda by others previous to our taking on this assignment would still go forward. So I wasn't going to interject
Right.
myself on that issue, but there are some issues with Crossroads, so that's a separate topic.
It is. And I
There's
don't
no
know,
issues.
and I don't know if Joyce weighed in on that. I don't think so, because I think it was being assembled. Is that your sense?
Right.
She probably didn't weigh in on the readiness of that.
I assume the development team meetings are the ones that push it to the manager and the supervisor as to its readiness.
Laura typically reports to the development review team. There is a discussion about issues. But the team itself hasn't been making the determination on, is this ready for the board agenda?
Well, isn't the development review team supposed to review the developments in order? for it
That's
to
the
move?
name that was given to the committee.
Okay, what is the
So
charge?
typically, I don't recall what the charge is. In
It
fact,
wasn't-
I'm not sure we have a written
It wasn't
charge.
created by the board. It's an informal committee. It was created by the manager. It's a non-committee
was.
committee.
It
Oh,
was.
this is new,
And-
ish.
So, yeah, and it's been helping to improve communication,
It's been helpful.
especially because
yes.
of Kathy and Mariah's participation in particular. I can give you
And
two a
Joyce
shout
did
out.
sit on those meetings too, as did Frank.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think they're helpful kind of working meetings.
They have been, very much so. But that doesn't mean we were signing off on the readiness for this to go on the agenda.
Right.
But I think that's what, I think Joyce was kind of weighing in a
Right,
bit with
but
Laura
she sat in
that.
on those meetings too, and I think you're right. Laura's the one that says it's ready
Yes.
for the
Yes,
board.
and
She's the one that moves it through as far as once the reviews are ready
Yes.
and puts them at their next step.
And I think the next step needs to be with Kathy, and that Kathy needs to be able to say, hey, this is ready for the board agenda.
Yeah, and then
Or
you,
not.
and Kathy, you don't use Peak or Granicus or Peak, so you would, right?
She
Right.
can,
Yeah.
she has that,
She has access, but
yeah, I'll train, yep, she can do it.
oh.
Okay, but that's,
But anyway,
That's the tutor
me.
so then with,
and secondary.
yeah, but
Okay.
wait, so
Tangent.
once the project is reviewed by you and you say, yeah, everything's there, whatever, then with Laura, then shouldn't that go to Will or
Will or Christie?
Christie to
Simply
place onto the
Placement.
Place it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that the review typically would occur over several months. It wouldn't be just at one meeting. We would have discussed the project multiple times
Right.
over probably 5-6 months even.
Yeah.
And it would be coming together gradually. And then when Laura said, I think this is ready for placement on the board agenda, then we could have that discussion. But right now, the group has not been weighing in on that. Laura's been saying that.
Is there a checklist?
Yes, Laura had
She's
developed
putting
a
it together.
checklist.
She's,
Yes.
Yeah,
Christie has that.
it's new. We're
Yes,
just
it is brand
updating
new.
everything.
I mean, honestly, I think between Christie and Kathy,
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is that you two should be fully empowered to make sure you're going through the right checklist and that things are ready for the agenda or not ready.
Right.
And I think starting tomorrow night, I'll probably, turn to you, Kathy, and say, Kathy, before we adopt the agenda, is Crossroads ready for tonight?
And that puts me on the spot because, I mean, personally, I would have waited, but
There is a public hearing.
No, I'm telling you about, but as the process goes forward,
yeah.
because certainly, something of this significance, with these giant PUDs, where there are so many competing interests, this has been, and I think the development team and your involvement has really helped get things better prepared before they get to the board table, but we still have a ways to go.
So Laura and I spoke a couple hours ago, and we're going to now start talking every Tuesday. We're gonna have a set time.
She did speak with Joyce every Tuesday at
Yeah,
3:30.
that's what she told me. This is the first I heard about that when
Okay,
we talked today, but yeah, so we are going to set that up.
good.
So bumps in the road anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see why you couldn't, for placement, actual placement, you couldn't have Christie help instead of interjecting another person.
Well, I would rather assist Kathy and take time to sit in on these meetings before I,
Mhm.
Right, but I'm saying instead of sending it to Will and then just Will doesn't need to be involved for
I
placement.
think maybe in the absence of Joyce, that's maybe what have happened. I don't know. I'd have to speak to Laura on that, but I mean, certainly Kathy, you let me know what your best schedule is on Tuesday.
Okay.
And after, we'll get whatever time is good for you and
Okay.
we'll work with that.
everybody is aware of what the board had approved for our AdHoc assignments.
Yep,
I think we need a
Including Laura
refresher at the next
preps
board
or-
meeting.
Carlisle, Wortman, OHM, everybody.
So give a refresher at the board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Would you do that?
Would you like me to do that,
I
Kathy?
would.
I'd be happy to do that. I'll put it under reports.
I did have one other thought on this subject. So we had assigned Sean to the sheriff and also the priority waste along with Will, and also the code enforcement. Does it make sense to, probably does make sense to re-divvy those up since Sean won't be
Oh,
here?
which brings, I'm glad you brought that up because after, I thought about this after. And I know we assign things to people and, to the code enforcement officer, but we didn't speak with them.
I think what we did was with code enforcement and sheriff. Code enforcement was to report directly to the board. The sheriff, I would just recommend that Christie run point. She's been point. I mean, Christie and I have been point for the sheriff. Surprise, forever. So I mean, I think that anything
Yeah.
that needs to come up, you can be the liaison.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine, but that's not the point. What I'm saying is that, we should not assign things to people, to employees without discussing it with them first.
I don't think she.
I hadn't recalled it as assigning the sheriff to Sean, so apologies.
No, you guys, I don't think you did.
We talked about that, but it was just the sheriff report, not the sheriff.
The sheriff report usually comes to the manager and then.
At least
the
that's what-
manager
right.
puts it on
But
the
it's-
board agenda to review it, but
It was in
the
here,
way
wasn't
I remember the conversation going was you were
Yeah.
comfortable with Sean.
And we
his-
put it
his
all in the
role and what he was
resolution.
doing to report just to the board
Mm-hmm.
and the same with Aurora.
Yeah.
As
So
would be me.
for now with the sheriff, are we all comfortable with having Christie run point on the sheriff's contract?
Certainly.
Okay.
You gotta keep us informed, Christie.
Oh, I
Well,
will.
it's not even on
Whenever,
yet.
whenever I get anything, I'll let you know. So far, I haven't
Yeah.
received anything.
And one
Nothing to do with code enforcement.
Well, we have it in the minutes.
So we have,
Where are
you're,
you looking?
Well,
you
this
guys,
is
we've
the,
got 3 different documents. We've got the minutes, we've got Aurora's email, and we have a resolution.
Yeah, this is the email to the board, but it's not. Oh, where's,
So there's,
This is our
the
meeting
resolution is controlling.
Can we
And that
put
makes
the
it clear.
resolution
but
in
that's the
board
thing is that we need to
Sure.
have one document that's clear, that clarifies everything.
Yep,
And goes to everybody. And this one does not have, what I have here, I can't find code enforcement or sheriff on here. But,
Does it say all staff positions anywhere?
and I think we can clarify that.
yeah, just,
So Christie will run point on sheriff. Something else I asked Christie to get back to is something she did really well before of having kind of a schedule of department updates for the board, a regular schedule. Remember, we had regular schedules and they kind of fell apart a little bit. And maybe Christie and I saw this more internally rather than externally, but say, for example, a quarterly report from the sheriff, the quarterly
Yeah.
report from the fire chief, the twice a year from the assessor. It's
Mhm.
been a little uneven, and I thought it might be a good idea to get kind of back on schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah, once I shared it out, I guess I just expected everyone to pull up their bootstraps and submit what they had to at that time for that meeting, but I guess,
You may need to-
oversee a little more.
Yeah, you may need
sharing,
to encourage people a little bit more.
Corral them a little bit, but I got it.
and we have the calendar on the agenda for tomorrow night and.
Right, and then following that, I will get them in peak and do the report as Jessica and put placeholders in there for each
Yeah.
meeting.
Awesome.
So
It'll be
it's
easier for
more,
everybody.
yeah, it'll be easier for everybody all around. And I spoke to Julio about the live streaming and I'm gonna get with him on that.
Oh, good, include me in that.
Yeah,
Cool, thank you. Awesome.
Awesome. Anything else on this agenda item?
I can give a quick update. We have our, Monday 20-minute check-ins with Plant Moran and the finance team. We've looped in Belisha and starting to, of course, cross-training. So Belisha's refining a written UV protocol. She's updated the bills, so they look prettier for those of you who have received one. There's gonna be some more improvements.
I've got one
And-
right here.
Excellent,
Today.
excellent. And Rebecca and I finished up the audit, the year-end audit. So I've got hard copies for everybody to be on the website. We've already submitted the final reports to the state, and I've already received, as expected, the request for the corrective action plan and the request for a deficit elimination plan, both of which we expected. So I'll work on that in partnership with the treasurer and bring that to the board. The deficit elimination plan will be approved. The corrective action plan will be for information to the board, but we'll share that out. And yeah, so working on cross-training Rebecca and UB, and then we are gonna work on cross-training Belisha and payroll in the coming couple months.
I'm working with Brandon for utilities and it's going pretty well, I think, and he has a lot of energy. So, but the emails and he's just been great with anything, helping me catch up on what is going on, but hasn't, it's just the day-to-day stuff with him. So he comes back tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be right on task. Yes.
Did you have any other updates, Jen?
I don't think so. Can't think of any right now. Chrissy's been great.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. All right, ready for our next item then? Discussion on search process for a permanent manager.
And maybe we need to prompt the board to initiate a committee. I think that was what was defined, right? So it may be a
Could be.
time frame or something.
That's the way we've typically done it.
Have we? Committee? So I think what I want to do differently than what we've been doing for the last 3 years is this. I would like to address the issues with the manager's job description and not just keep posting the same job description where inevitably I will object. I will vote against the person because this board has continued over my objections to put the manager in control of finance, in control over who's in the journals and ledgers. The problems play out time and time again. We just had the same audit findings. Just last week, I found out we didn't put the unpaid utility bills on tax, and the deputy treasurer went in and undid all those in the journals. So until this meddling stops, like, it is so mission critical. It's part of why politically I supported a majority new board coming in, and I have, I don't know what this board could do as a first good step on a manager search, because I don't believe that this board has the interest in changing the job description or bringing down the salary range to something competitive.
Well, we could start a committee because we're going to have to anyway, but the committee could begin doing the research. I mean, we
What's
have a
the
short period of
research?
time. We have
Define the job description.
58 days.
Because I'm in complete agreement. I would not want to search on the current job description at the current salary.
Yeah, agreed.
I thought that Amy Scio was of the opinion that we could begin a job search with the current job description.
Okay, I didn't hear her say that. She may have said that though. But even if
She
that
didn't
is-
say it, but I don't-
And she may have said that to you, but I have to say, I am really tired of, I think the mistake we've made several times here is like, let's just throw it out there and see who we find and then define the job. And I think Amy also, it really depends on what we're looking for in terms of what kind of search we want to do. I mean, Amy has very much this kind of, county exec for hire kind of market, and which is fine. but it may be, you know, we may want to broaden our scope a little bit.
And also, we need to be handing over, this is exactly what we want and not, but we have to get to that point first before we can engage anybody to search.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to put out an incorrect job description. It makes no sense to me.
I mean, I think
What are
honestly,
your thoughts on this, Aurora? I mean, this is kind of your area, yeah.
Typically what happens is the job description is created from, like, so to speak, communities. So,
Yeah.
and then you would kind of look at that and see if that fits in with the process that your municipality does. So one of the things I would suggest is probably we should try to get some township manager comparables and see what their job descriptions look like and do a comparison.
And then
okay.
maybe from there, we could figure out what Scio needs, because not every township is the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and also I know Amy, when she did the interim manager search, did have a lower pay scale. So the start was lower.
okay,
So I do want to point that out. She did try to start at the lower end. And then she had the higher range. So we could look at that also. is
yeah,
At the ranges that different municipalities have.
but I do think looking at the job description, because the truth is, I really think that we're in agreement on 70% of it. Is my estimate. It's just there has been so much, you know, kind of recklessness and carelessness and politicization of the job over the last few years. I want to have, you know, clarity and cement it down before we post.
Sure.
Can I ask a question? Did Joyce Parker bring her own contract?
She had a contract at first, didn't she? And then.
No.
But did she bring her own terms?
I don't, so I was not involved in that negotiation.
Mark was.
Mark Brichot, Grand Point, Bill Thacker, I know reviewed. What do you know?
I just remember seeing it, but I don't know that it was drafted or created by the township.
Yeah, so
That's what,
as a purchasing professional, I always advocate for having your own contract, your own terms.
Yeah.
You can't always have that, but
because I know she wanted mileage in there and
so
So
that to me would be part of defining the job description along with any negotiable benefits.
and I think now since we have Aurora here, I know I'm looking at you and you, between you and Bill Thacker, our employment attorney, I would have a lot of confidence in the two of you. Whenever the time comes when we have these individually negotiated contracts, that you would give the first one. And maybe we don't even need an individually negotiated contract. That's
Exactly.
Well, that's what I.
that's the other thing too. I know we did that in the 2020 era with the utilities director and with the fire chief, and I don't know that that was even necessary.
I think Bryce Kelly too.
Right.
And
You
Brady
could look
Kelly.
at his employment.
Yeah,
file.
I don't
think he
even
had
know
one
that
too.
the position necessarily begs for an individually negotiated contract, anything other than a regular employee.
Regular
And
employee.
once you know what the duties are, what you want it to incorporate, as Jillian was saying, then you have a better idea as to this looks like a standard job description. This doesn't require a contract.
Yeah.
So.
I think almost what we did with deputy treasurer job description, where you were able to get some comparable salary ranges. I think that would be a really good thing to do.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
That's the first step is get comparable descriptions and comparable salary ranges with that, and then
And there's
go from there.
few townships that have managers, but there's a couple, I think Northfield Township does in Washtenaw County.
And the title may be a little bit different, so that's the other thing we want to look at is they're calling it this, let's say administrative officer, is it really comparable to township manager that you're looking to get the description for, so.
Superintendent.
Right, superintendent,
That's-
right?
It's usually for a charter township. though.
Yeah.
And that has, and we have actually already in our ordinance adopted the superintendent job description for the supervisor or the
For the
manager.
manager, yeah, and it's not that different, but I think really when we talk about the job description, I agree, that's kind of step one, what we want to do, and then how do we want to formalize or codify it, because it's already in our code. And then we also have 3 different resolutions that speak to it, so, but it really goes back to our code in chapter 2 is where the job description is. We could definitely modify that ordinance or eliminate it. It's a little odd to me, just like taking a step back to have one job description in our code of ordinances,
Forever.
but not other job description, not the forever part, but not other job descriptions, like a fire chief or utilities director or something. It seems like it would be more in the interest of the township to not have a job description codified in an ordinance, but to take that out and have job descriptions approved by the board.
Somebody liked to copy and paste back in the day. Let's put it in there.
It was easier. May I suggest that, we, if she desires input into this, that we ask Judy if she wants any input into what we're discussing right now.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
2 observations. One, I appreciate having the topic on the agenda, but I think the discussion has gone beyond the charge
Oh, yeah.
of this group. So that's a concern I have. Having it on the agenda, I think goes back to what Kathleen said, was get it on the Board of Trustees agenda so that a committee, or just like this was created, to get that committee started ASAP to address the job description. There's no reason to delay the job description work and getting the comps and those kinds of things before the new folks are seated. I see no reason to delay that, because you can put anyone on the committee. You can put and so the job description, there's a general consensus, I believe, that does need to be updated. There's general consensus that the salary needs to be addressed. And I think also the hiring process, like who's going to be involved? Are we going to engage the Michigan Municipal League? They do job searches. Are we going to engage a person like an Amy Sell? I'm not suggesting her, I don't know enough. And so those 3 things can really be addressed by a committee. And if you don't want to bring it before the existing seated Board of Trustees, it can be ready to go on the very first meeting that the new Board of Trustees is seated.
Right.
And then roll with it. Because if the township waits, oh, we're pushing along. So what I will add in terms of observation, I see that there's having to be new processes being created in this interim situation. And if those get embedded for months, now you're going through the pre-interim processes, and then these interim processes, and then you're bringing on a new person and modifying yet other processes. So it's to be dysfunction beyond what it currently is or what it needs to be. So those would be the 2. Is remember what the charge is of this, stick with it, and then get that other committee going, just like you guys were really successful in getting this really accomplished in a cooperative and a collaborative manner, and get the new one going and address that job description, the comps, etc. And that would be my observation, because you're beyond some of the charge that this committee was put in place to do.
Mhm.
Well, we could, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We could put this on the agenda for, is it the eighth or the seventh?
Eighth.
The eighth, yeah, because then we're gonna have a little over a month from that time
Mhm.
before the new board,
Who wants to take the lead?
Kathy does.
Okay.
We need to do what?
To develop a proposed item for October eighth. So it's not just open-ended. I mean, who is interested in preparing an item for October eighth?
So, I thought it would be fairly simple that a committee would be formed. And the charge is to define the job description and salary range. Potential method of job search. Is it more than that?
I guess not, no. I think
Well,
you're done.
so-
You're done with your work.
I think that's perfect, and
Do you want to break that up and just submit it?
Well, I'm gonna put it in the minutes, so. why
Okay,
not?
boom.
Christie can add it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
Christie, we.
Yeah, Christie,
Or
would you add
Christie.
it to the agenda, please?
I will.
Okay, Kathleen and Christie. Perfect.
We'll work together.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Can
you.
I have an office?
Yeah.
Actually, we've already talked about that. For the trustees, little cubby, it's in the
Where?
last
There's no
stall.
space.
Yeah, it's in the last stall in the bathroom.
Okay, let's.
Okay.
Kidding. No.
The last stall in the bathroom?
Yeah. It's gonna be kind of weird.
Cool. The
So I would just say generally though, on the transition, like it's been smooth. I mean, I don't think there's been, to Rob's earlier comment, I don't think there were, Joyce left everything, very orderly, with kind of clear, about where things were at. There's not a lot hanging or things that people don't know about or anything. So I'm not concerned about, there wasn't a whole lot extra going on that others weren't already involved with.
And as they come up, we'll
Deal
take
with
care, we will take care of
We
it.
had like 3 days and her potluck, so it was and the last day of taxes. The busiest it was it was tax week. I was
crazy.
trying to put that on and do taxes too.
Well, you did,
So, yeah,
It's slowed off well.
yeah.
I guess with that being a question, one thing we did put on the agenda, but I want to bring it up. Does the group feel that we need another meeting? If so, when would
We
be the
do.
suggested timeframe for such a meeting?
and I think that the reason why is because, even today, there's things that have come up. And we need to discuss them, and if we're an interim management committee, we just can't drop the ball or let it go until we have a permanent. I think that there's things that are gonna come up that we need to discuss and make modifications if we need to. It could be we just show up and everything's peachy and we just,
I'm fine with having another, kind of check-in. I think in particular, as we get closer to November 20th, when we have, for example, assignments to the supervisor, like priority waste, parks, project manager. I would ask that the incoming supervisor, we start figuring out how to kind of transition some of that stuff. So maybe,
yeah, that's gonna be a little tricky.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
So that's why I want this committee to support and figure that out. What if we met in like 4 weeks?
So,
I'm throwing that out there. I'm flexible.
Well, I think not more than 3 weeks.
Okay.
Because there could be a lot that happens, there may not be anything that happens, but I don't wanna go too long. We can always,
So Monday, the 14th is Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples' Day.
oh,
We are not open.
so Tuesday?
hold on, yeah.
I can't do Tuesday. I can't do the 15th.
Tuesday's bad for me too.
Hope everyone enjoys their day off. I'll be working.
The 16th.
What is it?
That's a Wednesday.
Sure.
So, but wait, I have an Ann Arbor City Utility meeting at 2 p.m. on the 16th.
Oh, good.
We should do it in the morning.
No, I'm glad that they're happening and we're showing up. Thank you.
So is that,
We.
by
are
Zoom
showing-
or in person? Is that remote or in person? It will be remote.
So what time would work well on the 16th?
Earlier in the day than 2.
10 a.m.,
11?
11 a.m. I'm
Sure.
okay with that. Everybody else think?
That's good for me.
It's great.
On Wednesday, the 16th. We will send out a, invite
But yeah,
or.
I'll do the,
or- yeah.
he'll send me the agenda and I'll put it together with the Zoom link and
Awesome,
get it sent out.
Way to go, team.
cool. Anything else? We move to public comment. Any public comment from? Anyone online?
Yes, we have 2 people online. The first one is Rob Pattinson.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. In order to understand what happened in the 2 people that are leaving, I think it's important to ask, was any reason given by Sean McCormick as code enforcement officer for leaving, and the utilities, or not utilities, the facilities guy, Kevin? Did either one of them give a reason as to why they're leaving?
You know, that's not, we don't speak about kind of HR stuff publicly. In terms of a reason, and that's really just out of protecting people's privacy, Rob.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but I will say I've been really proud of the way that Aurora and the township have handled each of those situations.
Okay.
And
I would add that the next enforcement officer needs to address the noise ordinance problems. And that was the whole purpose of hiring Sean McCormick. And shortly after he was hired, he refused to address the noise ordinance issues and passed it off to the sheriff. And whoever takes that role next, we need to have them addressing that. And then I'm concerned, we had the vulnerability study, and we learned that the deputy treasurer refused to cooperate with that. We have Ryan Yapel coming in as our treasurer. Ryan, have you had any luck in getting in either part-time or getting in to work with the treasurer so that you hit the ground running on the 20th? And because with the weekend and the December 1st deadline for winter taxes, if I understand it right, you basically have 3 days to get the winter taxes ready. I think you need to be there
Can do it.
before the 20th. Have you had any luck in that avenue?
to a small extent, yes, Rob. The other thing I was gonna say, Jessica touched on and Aurora mentioned earlier to your question about like why people are leaving. I believe Aurora mentioned it. They did exit interviews, which are designed to help the township learn where we might be able to improve people's experiences, even if they're leaving good, bad, in different terms. So something where we're trying to learn even as people move on to a different career or whatever it might be, what we could do better.
Mhm.
That's
And-
perfect.
And I
And
would
that
say
was the reason I
in terms of supporting Ryan, I have full confidence in Ryan. He's a very capable treasurer, incoming treasurer. I'm looking forward to working with him. I'd also note a couple steps we're taking to help with that transition is on the agenda for tomorrow night is the approval of a future salary range for a future deputy treasurer. So that Ryan, in the course of talking to people, knows that there's a real job here, to be recruited for. And I've also, I'll also be bringing to a future board meeting, pretty quickly here, some proposed, consulting support for, training and help, preparing the tax bill and stuff like that. So I'd also like to thank Ryan. He sat down with me and Rebecca last week, and we're starting to go through kind of key processes And, you know, there's a lot of support available. It's not too, it is gonna be a big job and a big push. And I want to remind people that there are new township treasurers all the time. And I know that you're gonna be just fine and make it happen and get the tax bills out on time.
In the past.
Scio Township, it's been 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry to interrupt, Rob, but I have a question. Has there been any process or protocol for when one officer or board member leaves and a new one comes in? Is there any transition helping that new person? Do we have anything like that?
It depends, there's nothing established.
No,
It's dependent on the individuals.
the clerks have always been very cooperative in the handoff, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
This one.
But we could have something, we could put that into a policy.
Well.
You
but it
don't have to
depends on
follow the policy.
individuals.
I mean,
These are elected
Well, we know
officials.
that.
This is beyond policy.
We have
It
one
was
more.
like bye.
I mean-
each other. We're done.
But what I do want to say is there is a legal obligation on the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer
Mhm.
when each of them leave to hand over the records.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, you know, that's definitely something I'll be supporting each the outgoing supervisor and treasurer with.
That includes emails and anything else.
Well,
Is Rob finished? Rob, are you done?
I'm done. Thank you very much. Great
thanks,
meeting.
Rob.
I really enjoy how well you guys work together.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Pam Lloyd. Go ahead, please, Pam.
Thank you. I'm in enemy territory in Columbus, Ohio, so my internet might drop out a bit. Watching you guys again is just a balm to my soul. And Judy, I'm so glad that you are in Township Hall. Even if you weren't actually a part of it, I'm glad that you were brought in on it there at the end. And I agree, the next manager isn't in your purview, but I think the question needed to be asked and that there should be a direction from you guys as to what to recommend the next step is to the board. And so Christy, you are awesome. I'm so proud of you for everything that you're doing. And I think there was one other thing, but I think that's, oh, yes, Sean. I'm kind of heartsick over that one. I would suggest that at the very least, the board provides to residents. Maybe Sean has some recommendations on how the board can interact with that position in the future, maybe to protect whatever, but maybe to give recommendations somewhat like David Raleigh did. And I'll leave it there. We're on the road again, and thank you so much. Glad I watched.
Rob, Pam.
It was worth logging in.
Thanks,
All right,
Pam.
thanks.
Thank you, Pam.
All right. Anyone else?
There are no other hands raised.
Awesome. Motion to adjourn? I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned at 3:14.
Great job, Brian.